Hello, this is the Silver Watchman, and welcome back to Jack and Jill. Now, this is episode number, the finale. Wait. Never mind then. On this series, we've been on one heck of a long journey. We've talked about life. We've talked about marriage. We've talked about death. In fact, we talked about death a little more than I was expecting. And we saw a lot of death. But this is where this series comes to an end. We talked about suicide, murder, love. So now we're just going to round it up. Everything that we've learned in this series so far. Also, this is kind of a new take on how to do a finale, since normally they're just kind of random thoughts that don't really tie up the entire series. I figured with this series, that might be a changeable matter. But I want you to know this. We are human, made in the image of God, a model creation. So essentially, we can do similar things to what God can do, just on a much, much smaller scale. For example, God comes in three parts. We have one God, but he has three parts to him. Just to oversimplify. Part number one, God the Father. God the Father is all of God's authority and power. His influence, both direct and indirect, and that is the thing that people most often describe without knowing it. The influence of God, his power and authority. There's a reason that you don't see God moving directly too often unless you're really, really looking for it. That is the main reason that of this. God has to calculate every single action down to the smallest degree. Without doing so, he could effectively wipe out everything. One most notable version of this is this. The fact that humans cannot decipher whether or not animals evolved or not. Think of it like this. God had to calculate the manipulation and modification of every single animal species that we have. But if he had done it too quickly, it would have shocked the system that he so very, very carefully designed. By shocking the system, what would have happened is, an entire ecosystem could have gotten wiped out instantly. Which is why you don't see too many changes within a generation, but God takes generations, changing one small thing slightly. in every new animal species, or any animal species in general, that needs to have modifications so it doesn't die out. But because God takes his time with these things, yeah, sometimes his actions aren't fast enough, at least in our perspective. Think of it like this. You play The Sims. Some people play The Sims. Personally, I find the game absolutely boring. I've never really liked it. It's boring to me more often than not. I find games like this, or games like Gears of War or Doom or fighting games, or like stuff with a lot of action in it, like what you saw in Bullet Hell Mondays or Evil Factory. But slow-paced games are normally games that I find boring, unless they're an RPG, in which case you have to work to achieve a certain level. And that, I like RPGs because in my brain they are the most realistic type of game, because you're not immediately strong or weak. You have to work for it. Strive to the goal that you need to get. And if you're not at a certain level, you can't do what you need to do. But that's just me. I also like very fast-paced games because, we as humans have a tendency to be we live very fast-paced lives. 1 minute we're here, next minute somebody's dead in the corner. But that's just a thing. Also, somebody recently pointed out to me that my examples have a tendency to be quite extreme. That's partially intentional, because the point of the matter needs to be brought home. Home run. Now, the reason why people think animals evolved is simply because they see changes over generations, and they're like, well, how do we explain that? If God really is, doing stuff and modifying stuff, then why doesn't he do it all at once? Well, it's the simple fact that it's the system that he designed. He made a very beautiful and very complex system, but he also designed it to be a perfect balance. And if anybody here knows anything about balancing anything, imagine you're holding a plate. You're spinning plates. The people that do that have a tendency to know that even the smallest movement could have catastrophic consequences, or a house of cards. The smallest miscalculation could topple down that entire house. So, that being said, global warming is happening, and for a reason. God could allow the earth to instantly just, real fast, heat up everything. But that would shock many, many systems, so he's allowing it to happen slowly, delaying the speed of which should be happening. But humans are sort of extremely inconsiderate as far as things like that. We do not understand the level of influence that we truly have. And as a result, we often wipe out species because we don't calculate as well as God does. How much we should be watching and working because every little action that God has taken since the beginning has been a very carefully calculated decision. Like the modifications of many, many animals. When we first started having animals, there weren't that many. And there's a reason for that. We didn't have that many animals because of the simple fact that we wouldn't have been able to fit them all in the ark. He calculated the fact that he knew that humanity would pretty much mess up and get corrupted. And as a result, the flood happened, and there are evidences of that as far as fossilized records inside of mountain ranges. Because the entire time that the world was flooded, God terraformed the entire planet, turning what was once an entire continent of just one into multiple continents, separating them throughout the different parts of the planet, which is why we have 7 continents. And over, I believe, not sure if this number is right, but it's very rough to say the least. 7,492 islands. And that's a very rough number on top of that, because I can't read that number. But, like I said, it's all a very delicate balance. And God has to move within that balance. I mean, it's one thing to create a system that's balanced. It's another thing to modify that system while it is active and not destroy everything. Yes, to calculate for the human reaction, the system reaction, and the other reactions. Take, for example, the humble spider. Or as I like to call him, the irritant that I've never seen trip. No, I'm just kidding. I call them spiders too. Even though arachnid does sound a bit cool, it's not as easy to say off the bat like, oh, that's a spider, that's a no. You know? You don't, that phrase doesn't really work with, you know, that's an arachnid. We're going to know that very much, you know? Yes. But back to the original topic. We've separated murder from killing. To murder somebody, you need malicious intent. Malicious intent to harm and damage. for selfish gain or self-gratification. To kill, you simply have to be the cause of death, be it either directly or indirectly. And that's where we have another similarity to God. We are his model. He made us in his image. So, naturally, we can do the same things as he can, but on a very, very small scale. What we have is known as a circle of influence. There are two circles. There is a circle of direct influence, meaning what our actions directly affect, meaning what we intentionally try to affect. And that is our circle of influence. Direct, or circle D. And that is similar to how God does things, because God's circle of influence is like so. God the Father will make a decision using his authority and power, and he will directly affect something. And the direct effect is whatever he directly affects. Now, there's a secondary circle of influence that we humans have. The indirect circle of influence. Meaning what we don't intend or directly calculate to affect, because we did not directly interact with it to ensure a difference. Now, some people can calculate, at least to a small degree, every little thing that their action will affect and put into effect. But God does. He does. He calculates every single thing that will happen as a result of his actions, because his level of understanding far exceeds our own. Remember, we are humans and we have limitations, but God is without limitations. The only reasons that we try to put limitations on him is so that we feel more comfortable with having him around. Because naturally, as humans, and even I'm guilty of this, we get uncomfortable around beings of greater power than us. Some will bow down and worship. But if they bow down to the wrong thing, then they will end up in hell as a result of their choices. Now, the action, a great example of this would, believe it or not, be a video like this. A gaming video. But my direct actions, by playing the game, recording the game, editing the footage, and then speaking over all of that, I am directly affecting how this plays out. But indirectly, by choosing what to speak about, by listening to God as to what He wants me to speak about and letting Him guide my words, indirectly, these words are being said so that somebody somewhere will come to God in understanding, feeling safer around God, reaching out to Him. Because somebody is reaching out to them so that they don't die. They understand that that person was sent by a being of immense power. That person themselves that was sent is somebody who is strong. Who is not allowed to die. Despite the pain. But that's neither here nor there, so yeah. So, understanding how God affects everything is crucial to understanding God and His will in general. Without that, you'll simply be grasping at straws, because you won't understand the motivations of God. So therefore, you simply just say, well, that doesn't make any sense. But here's the thing. Huh. The direct influence is the decision that God makes to directly affect something. Be it... Actually, a lot of what God does now is indirect influence, mostly because of the fact that to directly move means that, in a way, He's negating our decisions. And He gave us a free choice. So to avoid breaking His promise, when He does move, He calculates the other things, which means that His direct circle is pretty big, but the indirect circle is even bigger. Say, for example, he directly ramps up the heat of the sun, and using the indirect influence, as a result, the earth gets a little hotter. But keeping that in mind, he's also ensuring that the animals and everything else is able to adapt by changing some animal species slightly. He does it slowly so it doesn't shock the system, because an animal that is what it's supposed to look like in about maybe 50 years, looking like that immediately, would have detrimental effects to the very delicate balance that God has worked so hard to keep. But also keeping in mind human reaction, which, I mean, some animals have gone extinct because of human interaction. By keeping that in mind, and that's part of how God moves. Now, while this is not the most interesting of topics, this is still a topic that is necessary to understand God, at least in a small part. I also apologize for being slightly deflated. Just going through a lot. Say, for example, have you ever noticed that some animals, even with historical records, their design hasn't changed? Because they did not need to have any changes to them. At all. Take, for example, a horseshoe crab, the crocodile, or is it an alligator? I mean, technically they're both the same thing. They just have, one of them is slightly modified because of the area it's living in. I guess we can't really say either. I guess horseshoe crab is the best one. Alright, horseshoe crab it is. And with the horseshoe crab has not really changed at all. It has remained pretty much the same as when it was first designed. It's basically this little crab that's walking around that looks like it basically looks like a Roomba and kind of acts like a Roomba. In fact, it's pretty much a natural made Roomba, because all it does is just walk on the ocean floor and eat whatever's on the floor. It's a Roomba. It is straight up just a Roomba. Yes. And since it's a very normal design and doesn't really need much modification because it's just a scavenger, that just eats whatever's on the ground. No changes were really necessary. Now with the alligator, actually not really much changes were made either. Even though now a subspecies is around, which are crocodiles. The funny thing about alligators is that they don't stop growing. The only reason they die is simply because of the fact that they don't have enough oxygen in the air anymore to sustain themselves once they reach a certain level, and the game that's around is not big enough to sustain them once they reach a certain size. So when they reach a certain size, they'll either suffocate to death or starve to death, which is, to some people that sounds absolutely brutal, but that's part of how God designed them. He designed them to be this hunting machine that could continue living and take down big stuff, and that if left unchecked could absolutely devastate the system. They're basically like they're like crowd control, pretty much. I would say, wolves, but wolves have actually changed a lot because now we have dogs, and that's the result of humans, and God allowed us to modify dogs as much as we have. And personally, I could probably chill out with a wolf or a dog, because in my brain they're just dogs that are just a little more aggressive, but you have to show them who's boss. My hands are too tired to clench. Oh well. Looks like that'll have to be affected later. Let's see, another animal that hasn't really changed in a while. Aside from the size, we could say spiders, because spiders are basically another thing that's pretty much crowd control, but God has made a lot of modifications on them. Simply because of the fact that now they're a lot smaller, which glory be to God for that, because nothing with that many legs should be able to run that fast. I'd be more comfortable with them if they trip, but as we all know, they don't trip. They just jump down from a high place and take no fall damage and stare at you defiantly as they run away. We must teach them to wear shoes. Actually, that would be pretty cute. A little spider with shoes on every single foot and a hat. Personally, I prefer crabs, even though crabs and spiders are similar things because of how God made them. God made a spider by pretty much taking hands, putting them together, and then having the bones on the outside. That's why you have the little these little pulpits that are there. And its butt is actually just, the wrists that are combined, where a good majority of its organs are, whereas the rest of the stuff is in the front part. I forget what that's called, but it's a thing. And that's why those things are like so... Then they have... so they have... 4 legs on either side. But in reality, you have those 2 things that are basically the fangs and other stuff. So you take 2 hands together, and he kind of fused the palms together. And, gave it a little brain so it could run around and put the bones on the outside so we could fit the brain inside of it. So now it has an exoskeleton instead of an endoskeleton. Oh my gosh, this is long-winded. And as a result, he had... Then he gave it a hunting instinct to... I don't know, there's some that are ambush predators. There are some that are they would just run after you. Oh my gosh, I hate those the worst. I'm not afraid of spiders, I'm just uncomfortable with having them around since they don't trip. To be honest, I don't like anything that has a greater level of agility than me. Even though I'm not a very agile being. I'm just incredibly clumsy. I mean, it's a good thing I'm kind of like a tank, because I could just kind of bash through any obstacle. You ask me to hop, skip, and jump up the stairs or anywhere, and I will honestly want to punch you, because that's a no. That's a firm and resounding no. I mean, even with another person being more agile than me, at least I have the comforting thought that they're going to trip at some point. But, alright, back to explaining what evolution really is. Now, some animals have been indirectly modified, but it is a calculated indirect modification. Take, for example, no, I think all of them have been pretty directly modified, just very, very slowly. Actually, I have more examples of animals that have been directly modified by God so that they can survive their environment than animals that haven't. Alright, we're gonna go more with the direct modification. And that's gonna be cave animals. Oh yes, those are the coolest ones. So cave animals, through since the whatchamacallit, since the ecosystem isn't very delicate as it normally would be without outdoor systems, God can make much more drastic changes to them than he would in a different environment, like say a Sahara or a rainforest or a prairie, because they're not as delicate. Say for example, God makes crazy modifications, like with, let's see, the first of those animals when they just got put in a cave to live there. They had pigmentation, eyes, and relatively normal senses. Next round, they had night vision and heightened senses. Next round, senses are ramped up even more, but eyes are gone. Next round, no pigmentation. Next round, senses heightened again, less limbs. Next round, pigmentation is absolutely gone to a near translucent state. No eyes, heightened senses, and an innate ability to understand the environment around them, including sensing of light without having eyes to see light. No need for camouflage since there is no light. Therefore, no pigmentation is needed. And that's just the rough thing of it so far. Now what's another environment that's not really that delicate? Let's see. Yes. Another environment that's not really that delicate is a cityscape or a urban environment or home. Oh my gosh. Yes, because you could change how a city looks and the home, just by moving stuff around, which, believe it or not, if you were to do that in a forest or a Sahara, that would drastically change. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's so cool. Okay, so spiders that were once able to survive in the outside world are no longer able to survive outside. That is one of the modifications, is they could survive better in the smaller environments because it's easier to hunt, and they don't, so therefore they're able to get bigger, or they remain smaller as to remain undetected from humans, us, so they don't die. What's another thing? The roach. Yes, the roach. La cucaracha. Those things that quite literally, if you got one, then you're probably sure there's a reasonable army of them somewhere, somehow. Now the roach. There is the outside roach, which is, a bug that it pretty much burrows under the ground, and you don't really see it. Whereas the inside roach has a tendency to be very, very dark brown or black to match the cupboards. The cupboards are the dark areas, so that it's harder for you to see them, so you don't kill them instantly. Because let's face it, those buggers are pretty gross. I mean, yeah, they're kind of gross. Like when you poke them, they start generating a sweet smell, which is, I think it's poisonous to us. I mean, it still smells nice though. And then when you kill them, then they generate another sweet smell. Wait, is that normal to be able to smell that? I don't know. I mean, it's normal for me. But then again, I could also smell stuff from like 3 miles away, so... Huh. Yeah, it's pretty normal. So... and now instead of laying an egg with maybe a cluster of, I don't know, 5 to 10, they lay eggs with a cluster of maybe 15 to 20. Because we kill them at such an amazing rate. Because we just... We just don't like them. Which is absolutely okay that we don't like them, but part of the reason why we don't like them is because they're designed to scavenge around and eat whatever's lying around, and that often more than not means that it's going to get into our food and then eat it. And we don't like that unless it's an animal that we genuinely find cute. But God has also designed us with we're basically kind of like a capybara in the fact that we can pretty much be friends with just about anything. And that's how God made us, in his image, which means God himself can get along with pretty much anything. Except that which is evil, because he's a being of justice and honor and glory. It's awesome. So, I mean, yeah, some people like, having spiders around because they find spiders to be cute. And I mean, me personally, I don't mind dogs or crabs. Even though I'm okay with crabs because crabs enjoy the water and they have these little claws to make them go clap, clap, clap. They're not really cute animals. I could just honestly respect the fact that they can eat just about anything and survive. As well as they can eat just about anything, so I could literally just leave it alone with a bowl of rice and they'll just eat the rice. with its little claw things. I can give it a strawberry and it's good for like a day. Low management. The right way. On top of that, you'll be like, go, be free, crab. It'll raise its claws in victory and say, yes, freedom is mine. I think I'm weird. Oh well. I also don't mind dogs because, quite honestly, dogs are fluffy and cute. And they're warm. It's like hugging a pillow of happiness and joy. And even wolves, if they can respect you, then you have nothing to worry about from them. It's a thing that they're designed to eat whatever is the weakest of the group, so that's part of the reason why you don't really want to have a wolf around when you have kids. Because it'll see the kid as a weakling and eat the kid. And that's part of, God designed it to do that. So the balance of the ecosystem could remain intact. They always go after the weakest of the group. They don't take out the strongest because they're designed to flee from what they perceive as strong. Which is why whenever you see a bunch of wolves go up against a moose, it's honestly, it's an honest epic battle. It's just like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Because you have this like big group of big dogs you just want to pet because they're so fluffy. Versus this even bigger, giant moose. Wait, do I have an audio clip of that? Of them? No? Oh. I gotta add that on at some point. But that is straight up pretty cool. So yeah, it's just like a whole bunch of wolves. They just close in on this moose, and the moose is like, I am not gonna be taking it today. And it just like, whoop, and it just slaps one of them away, and they're like, and then they are like, I'm gonna get you. And then it's like, bam, 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 and then the moose is like, you know what? I've had enough, and it stomps its hand. It's like, its hooves on the ground, and then they're just like, okay, this guy's stronger than us, let's run as far away as we possibly can. And that's pretty much a wolf versus moose battle. They don't normally go after what is strong. Similarly with other predators as well, because that's how God designed predators to do. They're designed to eat the weakest of the group, as well as herbivores. Herbivores are designed to eat a certain type of plant that, if left alone would take over the entire ecosystem. Each herbivore eats a different type of plant, believe it or not. And they're basically like the gardeners of that just, do like the hedge clippings. Meanwhile, you get the decayers that pretty much, the decayers, scavengers, and omnivores that pretty much handle everything else. Take, for example, the carrion or flesh-eater birds. The carrion are designed to whatever the predators have left behind, they will eat that meat. And they're designed to just strip it to the bone. While you have other entities that can eat the flesh as well, if carrion are not readily available, which is related but not limited to bacterians, insects, and scavengers and omnivores. Now, an omnivore is an animal or something that can eat pretty much anything and survive on whatever's around. Now, they're designed to clean up all the extras. All the extras in an area. So, like, whatever the herbivores miss and whatever the predators miss, they'll eat it and keep it at a normal level. Now, these three, plus the decayers and scavengers, all working together, make a very neat and clean ecosystem, which is needed. A filthy ecosystem is an ecosystem that cannot thrive, kind of like with a machine. You can't have your machine working if it's all full of gunk, right? Well, the dead are kind of like that. They're pretty much the gunk that can gunk up a machine. So, to resolve that issue, God has created a ecosystem that pretty much balances itself out. Now, there's always enough excess that scavengers and omnivores, humans would be considered as an omnivore, because quite frankly, we can eat anything. In fact, I'm pretty sure I've made a meal out of chips and soda at some point. I think that was a couple days ago. So, yeah, we can eat pretty much anything. Personally, one of my favorite things to eat would be like tuna and rice. You get tuna and rice, and you get mayo in there, and then you get ketchup. And if you're feeling really adventurous, you get hot sauce. It's delicious. Just delicious. So, one of the things that would be categorized as an omnivore would be squirrels. Actually, maybe. No, I think squirrels fall into the scavenger category because they eat whatever's around. Let's see, omnivore. Oh, humans would count. Keep in mind, humans are not an animal. We are an entity of potential power. And because, we are made in the image of God, everything basically wants to be us. So, let's see, another omnivore. I mean, I guess you could consider monkeys an omnivore, and apes, because they'll eat meat when it's available, and they'll eat herbs and plants when they're available. And pandas pretty much just survive on bamboo. So, oh my gosh. I could have said bears too, because bears pretty much, they just survive on whatever's around. Alright, I'm gonna take a small 5-minute break to get a drink, and I'll be back. And I'm back. Sorry about that, my throat was getting a slight bit parched. So, some grape juice was needed. So continuing on where we were, yeah, so God has a direct influence and an indirect influence on everything. But he calculates his direct influence so that when it affects the indirect influence, the indirect things, that it doesn't that when it affects the indirect things indirectly, it doesn't cause a catastrophic event. That it doesn't shock the system. Environments that can be proven to be extremely delicate would include Sahara's, also known as a desert, forests, not to be, actually, yeah, the rainforest as well. Prairies are among the most delicate of all ecosystems because of the fact that even the smallest change, like a small patch of land dying out, could have detrimental effects. But God also designed these systems to effectively rebound if something does go terribly, terribly wrong. Say, for example, if there's a giant fire, God designed that when something does catch on fire, and what it does is it makes the ground full of nutrients that are needed for a speed and quick recovery of the land. So that's why, after a forest fire, that, the whole ecosystem doesn't just stay dead, because if that was the case, then we wouldn't have really much nature to look at, because, let's face it, things just kinda sorta have a tendency to catch on fire spontaneously. Especially if you have a flamethrower, or lightning. Or a flamethrower, so yeah. Sorry. So as you continue to understand the world around you, you will soon be able to understand the fact that that everything around you is with a very delicate balance. Another way this could also be used to describe relationships. Relationships in themselves are extremely delicate because one day you two people could be best friends, the next day somebody dies, and now you're enemies. Like I said, very delicate. So, God has entrusted us to take care of this world, but that doesn't mean that He doesn't act on, ensuring that our environment doesn't die out. Because if there's anything that God will not let us do, it's destroy ourselves effectively. Yes, He will let us make decisions that cause us to get hurt. He will allow us to make decisions that are a bit odd. Like putting a dress on a dog, for examples, because reasons. And that's part of the reason why we are having such a difficult time discovering the cure for cancer and getting to the stars and finding viable fuel. And continuously exploring our own oceans. So but as you continue to learn about the world around you, you see that this world is, at least the parts that God has made, are in fact incredibly beautiful. I mean, take a look at a flower, for instance. Wow. 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 You take a look at a flower and you can see that some of them, they just look like they were just hand painted with a fine brush and special paint. Then you look at some flowers and you're just like, that's a field trip. That's a field trip. Then you look at some trees, and you're just like, that makes no sense. And yet, it's pretty. Then you have flying snakes, and then you're just like, why? Why do you exist? That is what I talk about with the direct action. God made the environment that we're living, like made the trees and everything else, and through modification has modified them so that way they make life, pretty to look at. He designed some of the most beautiful animals ever, and then some animals are just straight up just, they're just kind of creatures that make you go, why is that a thing? Take for example a platypus. I mean, it's like a duck, bear, beaver, and snake thing. Which honestly, I mean, it's a mammal, but it lays an egg and has a duck bill and poison. I don't know why that's a thing though. Then you have some animals that are just, honestly, they're cute to look at, like a bird or a squirrel. Or a dog. Or a duck. Yes, the majestic duck. What else? Man, there's a lot to talk about too. I'm just having a hard time figuring out what. Oh, yeah, another animal that has been modified a lot from what it used to look like is the shark. Because now we have multiple variations of shark, and sharks are they are a predator type animal, and they're designed to they're actually designed to keep the seal population in place, and the populations of different animals in place, because seals, if left alone, breed really fast, and so do some types of fish. And they just... No, God did not design them to be able to withstand long-standing fights. No, he designed them to be a kind of quick kill system, meaning that they're essentially an ambush predator. So, if you're not careful, they'll eat you. But in reality, they're designed to not like the taste of human, and not because what they prefer things to be is a bit more chewy. Like seals. Seals, for instance, are very, very chewy. And their fat can be used to make lanterns. So they're very chewy animals, but they're also very cute animals. Yes, very cute. Okay, so another biome that would be considered delicate but not delicate at all would be the ocean. Sorry. So, I might be here for a while. Hold on. Okay, so the ocean is... it's like multiple different environments, even though it's all the ocean. For example, you have the Arctic Ocean, the coastal ocean, and you have the deep, deep ocean, as well as the big spaces in between. Now, the coastal areas are normally like reefs and stuff like that, where you got a whole bunch of little animals living there, and they're pretty much all reliant on the reef system. Without that, they can't really do much to survive, because they hide. They hide in there from the bigger guys that will most certainly eat them if given a chance. And trust me, they don't want to give that chance. let's see. We have the Arctic. I can't talk. The Arctic Ocean, which is pretty much like the rest of the ocean, except it's a lot colder. And in this area, in this environment, you notice a thickening of the fat area, more meaning like blubber and stuff. Yes, it's very thick fat. It's like a rubber suit made of fat. And let's say you see this in the orca, in the seals. You see more fatty areas on the bears there, and the penguin. And the reason they need this is so that way they can remain a little more insulated than the rest. Now there is an animal that, like a fish that just quite literally can survive pretty reasonably well in just about anywhere. And this is the great white shark. The great white shark is designed to be a pretty much like it just whatever prey animal is around, it's gonna eat it. But it does prefer seal, and seal have a tendency to be in the Arctic region. So naturally, as an animal that is designed to hunt said seal, it will have to be able to survive the Arctic. But believe it or not, fish for the most part are not really warm-blooded things. They're just their temperature is the temperature of the water around them, which is why for the most part you can't really, like when you have a fish in water, you can't have the temperature too hot or too cold, because what will happen, they'll get shocked and they'll die. And that's part of the reason why I say that the ocean is a very like stable and unstable environment as well. Because of the simple fact that in the ocean you have like these multiple types of environments, and they're all in the same thing. Meanwhile, like with environments that are on land, the land could be pretty much drastically different, whereas in the ocean it's all pretty reasonably similar, aside from some temperature changes and some, I mean, you got like a giant thing in there that I don't even know what it's called, but that thing is big. It's not. It's no. It's not the squid. It's not a cephalopod. It's like a weird thing too. I don't even know what it's called. It's like big though, really big. Then you have the ocean, parts of the ocean that are actually like acting as cells for certain beings that are not allowed to walk among us until the end times. But that's another video in itself. Let's see. Yeah, so this great white shark has something that's a bit different from other fish. As in the fact that it can regulate its own body temperature, which you don't really see in most fish. For the most part, they're pretty much as warm as the water around them. So that's pretty impressive in itself. I forget how it does it too. But and a great white shark is also another one of those animals that I would not call a cute animal. But then again, not everything that God makes is very cute or as nice to look at. So, take for example some of the angels. There's one of them that is known as a chimera to many people as far as its looks are concerned. It's got a tail that's basically a snake. It's got like a goat head on it and other stuff too. It's just, oh my gosh, it's not a pretty animal. It's like a war beast too. It's just designed for war. To just go in and mess up everything. Which is honestly pretty cool. Then you have something that's like the goblin shark, which is like, it's just, it's another one of those Y animals. And you have the gopher eel, which is, oh good gosh. And then you have the anglerfish, which is, by the grace of God, it's only about the size of a tennis ball, because if that thing was any bigger, my gosh. Then you have like other weird animals too. Like it's another type of fish, a hammerhead shark, which is, I think all that thing really does is just scavenge around for like shellfish that are in the ocean floor. And how it does that is because it's got like right on the blade of its head, it's just just like a whole bunch of sensors on it, which is they're designed to like to detect the what is it called, the electroactivity of the brains of the nervous system of their prey, which is pretty amazing if you think about that. Then you have the turtles. Turtle. They can eat jellyfish, which is just a floating nervous system. And I guess you would consider these ocean turtles to be pretty much an omnivore as well, because not only do they eat they definitely eat seaweed, but they eat other things too. Because they'll eat jellyfish, shellfish, shellfish, and seaweed too. And that's how they are. Then you have another type of shark too, which is like, you have like the nurse shark, and that's just, it doesn't, all it does is like it filter feeds. It just goes around with its mouth open, and whatever gets in its mouth, it just like gobbles it up. But it doesn't have teeth like how the great white shark does. Also, another cool thing about the great white is God designed them to constantly be generating teeth, because he also made their bite force to be absolutely just devastating. I think their bite force is like, it's just a crazy high number. And their teeth are like tough enough that they can literally punch a hole through steel with a bite. Which, I mean, to me it's like, no, that's a lot of no. Kind of makes me want to swim in the ocean with body armor, but then I won't be able to really swim. Whereas, my armor has a tendency to be incredibly heavy. Great for tank shots, not so much for swimming. No, we'll just kind of go down like a rock. Thank you for sitting through this whole series. I understand that this particular video was kind of all over the place, but keep in mind it is a finale, so the rhythm of the beat of the finales have a tendency to be a bit different than the rest of the series. It's not a clean cut kind of. Unleash the potato. Sorry, but yeah. And that's pretty much a short summary of different environments and the balancing out of the ecosystems and everything else, and why it takes so long for changes to be seen in different animals. Thank you for watching. Glory be to God. And blessings be upon you. Thank you for sitting through the entire series. Thank you. And this is the Silver Watchman, signing out.